This is the initiation home screen. And this is Developer Tutorial 2, covering the user workload, the weekly and daily settings of the number of hours that the user expects to have available to work on projects. The model will come to the user preloaded with default settings. The user could leave these data variables unchanged, and the model would operate in a quick start mode, as described in the user tutorials. In the spreadsheet we see here, we color code all default data in light purple. The workload consists of the following elements. First, structure. We have both target, here's an example of target, and later on we'll see minimum. The second is time frame. Within each structure are both weekly and daily data. This is weekly data, and down here we see an example of daily data. Third, we have categories. Within each time frame, there are the same set of categories of types of work activities. First of all, we have total time. Total time is the total number of hours for a given time period across all categories, the total of sales cycle time plus non-sales cycle time. Second, we have sales cycle time. And sales cycle time is the number of hours per time period that the user will have available to work on individual tasks. And finally, we have non-sales cycle time. Non-sales cycle time is the number of hours the user will reserve to work on sales activities other than sales cycle time. And we can see that there are 5 non-sales cycle time categories. First, there's planning time. Second, training time. Third, prospecting time in person. Fourth, prospecting time on the phone. And fifth, research time. And finally, we have selection, default and user selected. The user selected are the values actually used in the model in determining the start and complete dates. We'll start with the first workload table we just showed, which includes all category selections in the same table. The structure is target and the time frame is weekly. And we can see that the first section of the table contains the default values in light purple. The user can change the default values using the bright green pull-down menus in the second section of the table. All other cells in the second section of the table we can see are light brown, and that indicated that they are calculated values. So, first of all, there's direct input. This row allows you to use pull-down menus to override the default values for weekly person days for each of the following work categories: for total time, and also for each of the individual non-sales cycle time categories. Each has their own pull-down menu. The model calculates the subtotal non-sales cycle time, hours, and then calculates the sales cycle time as the difference between the total time and the subtotal non-sales cycle time. Another approach is weekly percent of total time. And this row allows you to use pull-down menus to override the default values for the weekly person hours for each of the non-sales cycle time work categories, in this case as a percentage of the total time. The model calculates, again we see here, the subtotal non-sales cycle time, and then calculates the sales cycle time as the difference between the total time, 100% preloaded in the model, and subtotal non-sales cycle time. Percent of weekly default, we can see, is the third option. And this row enables you to use pull-down menus to override the default value for the weekly person hours for each of the non-sales cycle time work categories and the total time. But in this case, it's a percent of the default time for that work category. Now here what we see is the model uses your selection of which of the 3 approaches you decided to use in order to generate the results to be used for the system. The next section we see here deals with the daily default. The structure is target, but the time frame is daily. Now the daily default is a very similar process to the one we just demoed for weekly, except that the default and desired tables in this case are separate. Here we see the default tables. As we scroll down, we see there are 2 sets of override tables. The two ways that you can change the daily default, we can see, are in separate tables. The daily provides statistics as well as default and desired results. And the daily has decisions and pull-down menus for each day of the week. We can see Monday all the way through Sunday, including Saturday and Sunday. And the daily provides a built-in cross-check. We can see it here, to verify that for each category, the sum of the daily hours equals the weekly hours. In addition, finally, the daily displays the average number of hours for each category across the days that are not 0 hours. In this case, it averages across the 5-day weekdays, as the weekend days are set to 0 hours. Again, here we have a choice of two different methods of actually doing the calculations, and when we select the desired method of determining the desired values for daily, and it results in the brown numbers, and these are the numbers that will actually be used for the system on a daily basis for the desired. The method used to determine the minimum structure is identical to what we just demoed for the target structure, so we're not going to repeat the demo, but I'll just scroll down and show you that for a minimum, weekly, and then daily, and then able to change the choice and the final results, and some statistics that are basically generated there. This completes tutorial 2, Workload, the weekly and daily settings of the number of hours that the user expects to have available to work on projects. The next tutorial, tutorial 3, demos the calendar, the daily setting up of holidays and personal days, calendar days when the user would or would not be available to work.